Yes, hello, and welcome to another installment of the Fractal Standard. This one is going to be yet more brief because I've had to spend all day hunting for all sorts of forms because I file taxes not only for myself, but for another relative who has everything scattered helter skelter, and there's just a lot more random odds and ends in that direction. I was planning to record this today on a number of topics with my list laid out in front of me of what I wanted to talk about, but no such luck. So if you want to bear with me, I invite you to. I'm just going to riff on random topics. Topic number one, automobiles. So I have these two older cars, and they both break down a lot. And it so happened that for a bit I had to borrow my friend's Nissan Pathfinder. It was an '06 Nissan Pathfinder, so it's also older, but it's been maintained well, and it's just a completely different caliber of car than from what I'm used to driving. I was never much of a car kind of guy in terms of like wanting to have a good car and spending my money on cars. I primarily spend my money on food and hanging out, if I'm being completely honest. So it's not until I actually drove a decent car for a good little stretch of time that I realized there's a world of difference here in terms of how this feels. And I don't know. I still don't think it's necessarily a great investment to spend, anywhere from 25 to $35,000 up on an automobile. But I gotta say, it has its perks. And the funny thing is it's like because people would see me in the car like, "Oh, did you get a new car?" And I'm like, "No, I'm borrowing it from a friend." But the instant idea of like you have more respectability. Look, this dude that I know that vlogs, his name is God, what is his name? It'll come to me eventually. Aaron Clary. He's a former banker from like some Midwestern state, and he said, "Hey, out of all the people that come in to get loans to purchase these cars, like most of them cannot afford the cars. So it's funny that there's this like little social club of people in nicer cars and like, oh, you're moving up in the world. No, no, it's just a stupid consumer habit of running up debt. And yeah, just when you meet people's eyes, the attitudes are completely different from when you're like in a shitty car. Maybe the combination of the shitty car and the hippie hair makes people go, oh, what the fuck? And yeah, just little things like that I fucking notice that are just indicative of the stupidity of our society. So, moving right along here, what are we going to do when the roads and transportation collapse? I touched on this in another video where I spoke about bugging out and how it doesn't make very much sense to me just because there's not that much wilderness, and the wilderness that's out there, all these crazy rednecks are going to be there. So what are you going to do? And eventually your food's going to run out, and also you forget how dependent you are on society. I mean, there's all kinds of illnesses that can happen to you, and if you don't have the right medical expertise or the stuff to handle it, stuff can go south pretty quickly, and your compromised situation can compromise other people. So my whole take, as I said in the previous video, is we've got to work on not relying on the government, but relying on community and relying on everybody doing their part to understand how everything functions together. So if there is a hiccup in transportation or the production of food, or there's some kind of virus, people are able to coordinate together naturally rather than have everybody isolate themselves into their respective bunkers with their food supplies. I understand the deal for that because dealing with people fucking sucks, but it's something we're gonna have to learn to do. Not necessarily just in case of an apocalyptic scenario, but just because it's gonna make shit run a lot smoother. I don't know. It's not very punk rock to be advocating for community togetherness, but it's a necessity. So the reason I'm filming in the library slash living area, living room, is because my relative is taking a shower. It's making shower noises, and you can probably hear it in here too. This house carries sound because it's built on an open concept. I thought it was funny because there's a subscriber. I don't know if they're a subscriber, but there's somebody who watches my YouTube videos, and I think they're an architect. And they were commenting on my ceilings and things and how they look like they're basically painted over like plywood, which they very well could be. But this little ship pattern is it's very common in the area. You know, the fireplace, the stone fireplace, is the nicest touch, as well as the kind of vaulted ceiling in here. This is a very much a 70s house, but I've noticed the walls, and my friend made this observation. They look like trailer park walls. Now the house is brick, so it is nice, but the walls have this white wood paneling type of thing, which we used to own a campground, and we used to live on a trailer on a 26 acres, and it's pretty reminiscent. So it's kind of an odd thing because the house is like a very small, cozy, middle class house, but at the same time, it's kind of like mixes and matches all of these things, which I think is probably indicative of the weirdness of the 70s. But anyway, let's try to find another topic here. See, like I said, I'm gonna have to just riff off the top of my head. Oh yeah, Australia. There we go. I see a random book. I don't know very much about Australia, but I know that it gets very dry, and they have sheep out there, and sheep require water to, to do animal husbandry. For sheep requires a lot of water, and that's one of the issues out there with water supplies, as well as the fact that I think that they do a lot of water intensive agriculture in general, because the English came down there and they basically tried to treat the land, which is very different from the land in England, as as if they were in Wales or something. So it's just a interesting thing, and now they're trying to catch up with those past decisions of setting up those farms and their economy around those things, with the ebb and flow of the river and the dry seasons and the recent fires I think we had there that were pretty bad. But yeah, another bug out location that I heard a lot of people talking about a few years ago was New Zealand, which is kind of on the same side of the world as Australia. And I always wonder why New Zealand. Is it because it's going to be kind of isolated from everything? But it's such a small country. How many people are going to fit there? It seems like also expensive. So how many? Yeah, I don't know. Bugging out is just such a fantasy, in my opinion. You should be able to do it just in case there's like a slim chance that it helps you out. But yeah, the reason I'm thinking about all of this is just I listen to random podcasts and things, and I stumble across it, and it's stuff that I've given thought to before, because I wanted to kind of like basically travel around on foot and live in a tent and then write, but that never happened. But it's kind of related to the sort of same idea as bugging out, except it's bugging out for the purpose of some kind of creative hippie bullshit. Yeah. Anybody else in like their early 20s, late teens have that idea of being a friggin' wanderer? Yeah. I mean, some people do it, but I don't know if it always ends up as great as it seems. If anybody out there is doing it, go ahead, and they happen to stumble along this video, go ahead and tell me your experiences. Oh, shibbity. Let's see, I got plenty of books here. Gray's Anatomy, Jules Verne, Michael Crichton. Yeah, Michael Crichton is the inspiration for the title of this site, because not in this book timeline, but in his book Jurassic Park, he had, of course, those little fractal things, because Ian Malcolm, one of the characters, is a mathematician, and he was using chaos theory to like project the probability of something going wrong in the park. And yeah, when I was a kid, I was fascinated by that, even though I didn't understand what fractals were, and I still kind of have a very loose grip on it because I'm not a math guy. But just an interesting tidbit in case you didn't stumble across my introductory video on my main webpage, which I might not even have linked to anymore. Good deal. Funny thing about finance is I never established a line of credit because I don't believe in credit until I was, basically given this house and given some responsibilities over people and animals and things, and emergencies keep happening. And I guess if you don't have savings, which I didn't build them up because I lived like an asshole, you're going to need credit. So I think obviously you're probably going to need a mixture of both, but I still lean towards the saving side, towards the Austrian school, as it were. And I'll be looking into what the hell the Austrian school is and explaining it to y'all in upcoming videos. So thanks so much for listening. I'm going to go ahead and go now because I have a couple of more errands to run. Take care, everybody. Subscribe if you like what you saw, and hit that thumbs up button or call me an asshole. Cheers.